Thank you for the Embassy
Yeah.
of United States of having me here. And it's really nice to see all of you in the circle. We asked actually to break that formal layout of chairs and speakers because we would like to share some topics and important things from our hearts and our minds with you. And we actually expect that you will ask something or will be a part of our discussion. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions. And if you think that your questions are more important than speeches things we're talking about, don't hesitate to break us and to ask what you're curious about, because it's the main thing is to clarify and to talk with each other about these themes. And okay, let's start. National Forum of Human Rights and Human Rights Day gathered us together to talk about quite tricky but I think important themes today. And the theme is, why should human rights be a central part of my life? The same topic was a topic for the 17th anniversary English writing competition, and as I know today we have finalists of the competition. Yeah? Could we make some noise for them? It's really nice to know that you're thinking about that and writing about that, and you're clever and conscious enough to think about that. It's really important. The description of this discussion was like that. I will read. The discussion will seek to provide answers why it is vital to protect the rights of the most vulnerable members of society, and why the principles of equality become more important on a day-to-day basis. In other words, as I understood this sentence, today we're going to talk about what human rights really mean for us on our daily basis, why it is important to talk about, and what can we do that actions should, I don't know, act or to become a reality. What do you think, Donatus? We have two guests today. Erica Jennings, as it was written in the description, singer, songwriter, activist, and mother. Donatas Puslis, head of media program at the Vilnius Institute of Policy Analysis.
And a husband.
And a husband. And a man. And a
You better add wife to that as well.
and a husband. So, let's start with Donatas. May I ask you, what human rights mean for you practically?
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me? Because those microphones are on different level. Yeah, so that's a very good question about practice. When I used to work at the school, I used to be a teacher in a so-called program I choose to teach. There was a few lessons that I had to speak about the Human Rights Declaration, and that was a big challenge for me, because it's sometimes, very easy to say, look, that's the document, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, that's written this, that's written that. But to speak about the practice means to speak not about the letter, but to speak about the spirit. And the spirit, for me, human rights probably mean solidarity and empathy. I will start probably with the solidarity, because one of the important people that influenced my way of thinking is Polish priest Józef Tischner. In the 80s, when Lithuania, Poland also was under communism, he was asking the question, what's going to happen after solidarity, after the movement that was formed in Poland to defend the rights of the workers and basically human rights. And he said one very important thing. okay, we will probably win, and then what's gonna happen? And he said, not all forms of being together are solidarity. Solidarity can't be against someone. At that time it was against someone, like against the regime, against the Communist Party, against the oppressors who deny us human rights. But he said, solidarity has to be for something. And that's empowering. That's for being together in solidarity for the people who are suffering, for the people who are disenfranchised, for the people who are left on the margins. And we can speak about a variety of things, from the social inequality towards the rights of national minorities, sexual minorities, and so on. So it's human rights. It's about not being against something. It's for something, standing together, and that's. I think very important, and this is impossible without empathy. Very practical thing. When I hear about human rights, I remember me being at the school, and there I was both. Sometimes bully, sometimes the one who was bullied. Now, when I remember those bad things that I did, there were not like something, criminal, but still saying some bad word or being in a company against, someone who is weaker, doing some trick which we thought it's very funny, but not thinking about that it's very hard on this person and so on. So I still really feel ashamed. So that's actually bad thing that I did, but a good thing that somehow I think I got this muscle, which is important, not in the hands or feet, but in the spirit, the muscle of empathy, to be able to stand in the shoes of the other, to think before doing, like, okay, if I will do this, maybe for me it's funny, but that's not really funny, how he will feel. And that's actually, I was in the role also sometimes of this one who, they thought it's very funny, and I didn't think that it was funny. So yeah, for me it's about searching for the ways to be in solidarity and for the ways to encourage empathy, like thinking about how does the other person really feel. The person who is next to me, not the one who is on a TV in some TV show, and I feel sad and I cry for him that his love didn't fulfill, or her love, or like I'm sad but then I turn off the remote and I forget. But my neighbor at the home, my classmate, my family member maybe, a guy whom I see for maybe begging on the street, do I know his name? Do I ask him how he is? What's his life story? Some maybe member of different national minority. If we, sometimes have silly jokes about like Polish, Russian, or Jewish people. So also like thinking about so many things, but practically training myself to be more empathic.
Thank you, Donatus. And I would like to remind you that if you don't feel comfortable to talk in English or to ask questions in English, we're comfortable to answer them in Lithuanian language. Or if you would like to say something to add, just raise your hands and we can start a real discussion. Okay? In English or in Lithuanian. Good? Good. And now I would like to ask the same question for Erica. What do you think? Why should human rights be main part of our life?
Okay. Can I borrow your microphone actually, because I think it's a bit louder. Hello. Hello. Hi. Say hello. So I'm going to keep this short because I really want us to have a discussion. I want to hear from you guys. I want to say, first of all, big congratulations to everyone, all the finalists today. Can you raise your hands if you're the finalists that are here today? Wow. Really well done. It's so nice. And it's so nice to see everybody here today. One thing I would like to remind everyone about is that human rights are fiction. They're something that we created. And why did we create it? We created them in order to become better people. So I thought a lot about what I want to say, and I could tell you a lot of stories about dealing with racist skinheads or getting into arguments with people who didn't like my gay friends or stuff like this. But I would actually like us to think about the expectations that we have of one another. You have certain expectations of me, and I have certain expectations of you. For example, you don't expect me to stand up here and start shouting abuse and swearing at you, right? Am I right? Okay. And you expect me to have a certain amount of good manners, right? Okay. You expect that if you don't want to drink tea, that somebody's not going to make you drink it anyway, yes? Right. You expect to breathe clean air. Do you? Okay. You don't expect to be told that you cannot say your opinion, that you cannot exercise your right to freedom of speech, correct? Am I right? Okay. So we have these expectations of one another. We have these standards that we adhere to. But what I want to say today is that it's really important that we are conscious of maintaining those standards. Because if we don't work at maintaining the standards, then they are going to decline very, very fast. So each of us in our everyday life, that's what we do. And we try to keep pushing forward and keep improving those standards, those human rights, the standards that we hold ourselves to. It's really, really important that every day we're conscious of that. Because when you look at a situation where people let those things slide, you end up where you have leaders in very, very powerful countries who are not maintaining those standards, who are, in fact, lowering those standards every single day. And it's up to the people, and I think that linking human rights with politics, you can say that we very often treat our politicians like parents. Like they're supposed to tell us what to do, they're supposed to guide us, they're supposed to show us the way. When actually I think that we should treat them like our children. We should tell them what we expect from them. We should show them what we want and how we expect them to behave. So I would really like to also discuss with you guys about what you think the next standards should be, how we can improve for the future. Because for me, briefly, what I think the future, in terms of what we need to work to protect in our human rights, I really think that with this digital age and with the fourth industrial revolution, I think that we need to, more than anything, fight to protect our minds, that we can ensure the right not to be constantly bombarded with advertising or things that we don't really care about, but social media follows our algorithms, so we see those ads anyway. But to protect the sanctity of our minds and human connection, because I think that in the future we will have to protect those rights more than anything. So, should we open the floor?
I think yes, definitely. Yeah, I have my own microphone.
So, should we hand the mic around or something?
Yeah, I think Erica touched really important and unexpected theme, human connection, and it should be actually be a part of the list of human rights. And I would like to ask you guys, what do you think about questions or topics that Erica just uncovered here.
Or if you have any questions
Yeah.
or anything.
Do you have a question? Yeah.
So I would like to ask you, when I think about human rights and protecting them and making a difference, I think about when you're at school, at university, it's quite simple. But when you are in your adulthood and you have a job, you have children, you have a husband or wife or whatever, and how you can make a difference then when you are really busy and you have no time. And how to not lose your patience when you're dealing with people who are sexist, racist, homophobic, and all that. Because it's really, really easy to just lose it, and you don't want to show that side of human rights that you're protecting, and just how to not to lose it.
What is this? As I heard, the question is about what
It's
is
a good
the
question.
source of patience?
Of patience, and
to-
also how to make a difference when you're adult, and you have a lot of stuff on your hands.
Well, I think that's a great question. I think that, when I was a teenager, when I was 14, 15, I would just lose it. I had no patience. But, and I was constantly getting into fights and arguments. But then I realized with time that that wasn't helping the situation. And it was really hard, but I had to just be patient, not hold my tongue, not say what I wanted to say, but it's really important how you say what you want to say and how you can disengage someone. And you can really quite easily disengage a bully if it's about how you say it, how you disengage them. And how to do that when you're busy and you're working and kids and everything. Well, if you have kids, I think it's really important to make the time because you're raising a new generation, so you're constantly having discussions. We have constant dialogue, and it takes up a lot of time, but it's really worth it. But as an adult, I think it's just on a daily basis being mindful and calling out something at the moment when it happens.
Thank you.
May I add something from my perspective? Actually, I think that once you start, you can never stop because it's impossible. If you become conscious of one question or another, suddenly these themes are reaching your mind. It really irritates you. It touches you, and as long as you're conscious about something, you cannot stop that thing. And actually, for me personally, that motivation to talk about that, I don't know. It becomes a second nature, actually.
And also, it's really important to talk with people who don't agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is like, because we become so used to having only people who are friends and people who like us on our newsfeed. So when we engage with somebody who has a completely other opinion, we kind of freak out a bit nowadays. So it's really important that we discuss and debate in the right way.
And then to learn how to talk with them, because
Right.
at first, as Erica mentioned, you have no patience to talk. You just see the world black and white, and that's all, and it's bad or good. And then you start to grow up as a person as well, while you're become how to say, when you start the dialogue, because it's really healing for you as well. Because I think that three of us, we have totally different experience, and maybe we have different attitude to different things, but I think it's important to talk, especially I agree with Erica, with those people who has another opinion, because we are totally different, all of us, and have different experience, and to understand each other, as you noticed, it needs patience a lot. Yeah. We can pass the same mic around.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to turn this question in a different way because I think it's not that easy to be an activist when you're at school or at university, because as we talked in this conference, in school we don't know what is human rights.
and we are not learning about it. So I think when you're not learning about it at school and at university, it's really hard to become an activist when you're an adult. So what do you think? What is the best way to include the education about the human rights at schools and at universities?
And
Thank you.
this question is for Donatas, Erica,
yeah,
for everyone.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Go for it.
I wanted to buy a few minutes, you know, to think.
Okay. Okay.
But, okay, yeah.
Okay, so I think first thing you should do is just demand that it be included in your curriculum. You want to learn about it, you have to make it happen. And it's the exact right place to start is high school and university. That's where all the great activists of the world began. And you can totally make it happen, but you just have to Google, because we live in the digital age, we're super lucky. You just put in how to lobby for something, and you can definitely, it's completely possible.
I agree, but I a little bit disagree with Erica. But I will explain later because I draw a picture while she was talking. And Donatas, go for answer.
Okay, yeah. There is one thing actually that one slogan that became like a slogan that I don't like at all. It's probably you hear it quite often when some important person visits your school or sometimes even inside your classroom. That's when someone says to you, you are the future of Lithuania. Say no. We are the present of Lithuania, so we change the situation now. It's not that tomorrow we will start to do some things, you know. You started to do it now, and the thing is, like, for example, take weightlifting. You can't start with 100 kilos. You have to start from very small things. And the thing is, sometimes you can even get really paralyzed. For example, I want to change Lithuania. Of course, I want a situation to change. But how to do it? So I have to start in my neighborhood, in my school, in my workplace, and so on. And those are very small things. And I think what is important, you can also, like now we can speak about the teachers' protests. Like you can have different opinions and it's valid. You can be for or you can be against it. How I look at it, you can have 100 civic education classes where someone will tell you that's the right which is guaranteed for you in the Human Rights Declaration or in the Constitution. There is, for example, a right to mass gatherings and strikes. Yeah? But you will just know, and you will probably, then we will get a question somewhere in exam or somewhere, what are the rights? You will write it down, but you will not have any practice. So for me, the most important thing is to delegate the power to the students in various ways in the school, that they would feel that they have influence and that they have responsibility on their shoulders. And it's speaking about everything, bullying and so on. And for example, when someone comes, I used to be a teacher, yeah? Someone comes to me and says, teacher, we have a problem. The first reaction, my reaction can be, oh, I have to solve it. Yeah, I have to do something. But no, stop. We have to do something because it's our common problem. I'm not a superhero who can, tell someone and then they would suddenly change. We have to find a common solution, and sometimes we can sacrifice, for example, half an hour out of 45 minutes of the class, because more important thing is to discuss those issues that are very valid. And for example, about some things in history you can read at home and then come back and we can discuss. So it's about practice. It's the teacher, he will not solve everything alone. He can show the example, the way to be, but you have to take some weight on your hands, on your shoulders. And of course, the most important thing to say at the end is that defending human rights, those basic values, makes you risk. It's not. Sometimes you have to pay for that. If you defend a guy who is bullied, someone can start to bully you. And you can ask, is it worth or no? Do I surrender and say, okay, let's go because I'm too weak? Or or you go, you gather support, you challenge. And I think the most important, I'm not lecturing, I was weak myself many times, but somehow, you know, you feel this, like when I spoke about empathy, that it's not right way. And sometimes it's worth paying, even like if you're risking being bullied, being excluded sometimes and so on, because it's a good thing in front of us.
Thank you, Donatus. Inspiring speech. And now we started a little bit to teach you how to be conscious and how to go to the consciousness spot. It's really good, but I would like to look at these things from a little bit different perspective. I would like to suggest you. It just occurred to me to draw three things, and one thing is I call it theory. That Erika mentioned that it's some kind of that human rights fiction or standards, what we call theory, and that we're discussing about on our mental level. The second thing is experience, and the third thing is consciousness. And we're talking how to go to that spot, consciousness. And I think that when we are talking about human rights and what does it mean, actually we should go back to ourselves and to think about our experience. I bet that every one of you faced human rights topics on your daily basis. And I would like to share my experience, how I'm related with human rights. At first, my country was occupied, and a lot of people I know faced the topic, which means self-expression or freedom of the word. How to say in English? Freedom of speech. Second thing, I'm a man. I was a boy, and while I was at school, actually, I felt I was not masculine enough. I felt that I didn't fit in standards, in norms. Other guys were taller. Other guys liked basketball, and I didn't. Other guys was talking about girls, but I usually didn't. So then I realized that I'm gay, and I reached that that experience that is really was heartbreaking for me, and that's how that was the way to the introduction to human rights theory then, and I was started to read it to read some books at that time. Beside these things, I know what is hate speech, because I experienced that at home. I know what does mean addiction, because I experienced at home. And I have a friend who is black, and she was grown up in little small Lithuanian village. And I heard so many times about that things, and it's not a theory. That was an empathy who worked, because I know how it hurts, and it hurts even for me. Actually, every time I heard these stories from her village, I felt that I'm a little bit guilty, and I'm a little bit responsible for that. So, and many other topics I can include in this I don't know, speech or words, and you may ask questions if you want, but I just wanted to show that every one of us, if we think personally, we exactly not know maybe what human rights mean, but we feel what human rights are about. So I would like to ask Erika, because she was a teenager when she came to Lithuania. And what was your experience about human rights topics when you came here? And how many of them you can mention in your personal life? if I may ask you, and if it's comfortable.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, I guess the first ones would have been with my bandmate, because he still is black, half black, half white, whatever. And before, it was really interesting because before, as a band, we got known. After we got known, it all stopped. It was just so strange. But until we were known, we would literally get this very often. So we would go to the football match. And I remember, and that's, another thing about you say hate speech or whatever, and we were standing outside the football stadium, the three of us, and like 60 skinheads come marching to the stadium in their whole outfit and doing the whole Hitler thing and singing their stuff. And they come by us and they see V, and it was like, okay, and you could feel the tension. And when we went to the match, we were sitting there and they surrounded us, and they come to sit beside us like that, these big guys. So what are you doing here? So why are you here? Like, trying to make us leave. And I don't know why it's like that. I don't know, but every time that's happened, I always get really stubborn, and I just won't move, and I just stay there. And I was like, no, we're staying. And he's like, no, we should really go. I was like, no, we're staying. So, and I'm looking around, and there was no security. We're just looking somewhere else, but not there. And in the end, it came to the end of the match, and we understood that we should leave earlier, because otherwise, who knew what was going to happen. We had more incidents later on when we were on the beach in Nida in the evening. We found ourselves encircled again by a bunch of skinheads who basically, in Lithuanian, were discussing how they were going to beat us up and rob us. And me and my sister, we didn't understand enough at the time. So we were all alone. And in order to sort of get out of the situation, I struck up a conversation about football. And I said, hey, you like football? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, we're from Ireland, and we like football too. And then they were like, oh, you're from Ireland? That's our second favorite team. No, dude, it was so weird. It was so surreal. So we're like, okay, let's go hang out at the bar. And we're like, oh my God. So we managed to get across the ferry to Klaipėda, and then we're like, no, we have to go back to Vilnius. But it diffused the situation, And I remember also the first time that I was, like I could tell you many more incidents. But I remember one interesting incident. The first time I was called, it was in a bar in Vilnius. I was about 15. The guy was about 50. It's not what you think. And he's an English guy, and he called me a Fenian. And that was my reaction, just like you. Yeah, and what's that? And I didn't know what it meant, so I wasn't at all offended. And I was like, okay, you're strange. And I went on about my business. I went home and I asked my parents, what does Fenian mean? Of course, my father was furious, because it means, it's like a derogatory word for Irish person. But it basically means freedom fighter. So, depending which way you look at it. Kind of thing. So anyways, that was one incident. And you can talk about racist incidents, sexist incidents, you can go on all night about it. But the point is that of course, we're all going to have those incidents in our life. You've probably already had them. Doesn't make it okay. It just means that it's really important that I really think it's important to call it out when it's happening and make your stand, hard as it is, and it's terrifying, but you have to do it. And And in school, like you were talking about how you were bullied and the bully, I was always the one in the middle, like somehow in between the two of them. But but you know, it's the interesting thing about bullies that once you challenge them, they don't. In the end, they don't. They're cowards. They won't bully you afterwards. Once they realize there's more than one person against them.
So thank you for sharing these stories. Actually, they're really, really, how to say,
I don't know if they were
How-
interesting at all, but
interesting. I think, look at these faces. Would you like to share some stories? Donatus?
Or, me?
Yeah.
like-
Because we were talking about our experience.
Yeah,
and-
like when Erika was speaking, I thought about one. I grew up in Panevėžys, like you, Dominikas. We finished the same gymnasium, and I used to live nearby. And next to my home, where I grew up, there was a so-called internat. So it's the special school where the people with special needs were going. And actually, they were not just going there, but they were living there, or they were taken home only on weekends, or some of them they stayed there all the time. And once it happened that we lost a basketball court in our courtyard, so there was no place for us to play, and we decided we have to go there because they had very nice renovated basketball field. But the thing is, we had very, very long story of difficult relationship. We were often passing by the school. Sometimes we were telling some bad words at them. Sometimes they were throwing stones at us. So there was so-called, different courtyards fight against each other. And at the beginning, the relationship was very, very, very difficult. Because you have, then I realized after we started to play together, we became friends and so on, how many stereotypes I used to have. Of course, it's like there were steps from both sides, because they were also looking at everyone who comes from outside as a potential danger. That's why they were throwing stones sometimes, because they felt that the world is betraying them. That they only make fun of them, making different faces and things like that. But then somehow, I got the best basketball team. But the question which remained for me was, of this division where, let's say we go to the normal school and they go to their school and we don't meet. And then I thought, okay, there are many people like this, but we don't see them on the street. And that tells something about our society, because why you do not go on the street? Then afterwards, when I finished the school, I used to go to some summer camps with the people with special needs, because when I found the contact there in Panevėžys, I started to I wanted to make difference, or in some way, yeah. And I experienced at the first hand, for example, we are going with I was going with two of my friends. One was autistic, the other had Down syndrome. You can't believe how many bad words did we hear. I also was yeah, you have to go, you have to hide, what are you doing on the streets? Of course, the situation is changing. That was 10 or 12 years ago. Now we have schools which include different people in one classroom, and that's also very important. You can speak about those people, you can read about them in the books, but it's much better to meet them, to be with them, to speak with them, to share with them, to become friends. Not to become like that, oh, I'm doing something very good, no, I'm higher, so I'm helping them. No, they helped me a lot to change my attitudes, to become at least a bit better human being, I think, and I owe them a lot. Actually, I don't know, did I give them more, or did they give me much more? But this inspired me to think about the situation in the society and how to change it, that they would be just an ordinary pedestrians on the street, not afraid to go out, just because they will hear some words, you know, that you have to be out. And it's improving, but it's still a task to do. And they are just a small example of what we have to do still.
Thank you, Donatas, for an inspiring story. And what do you think about that? Maybe you have your own experience or you have some questions for us.
You both of you talked about human connection and empathy a lot, and how it is important, and we become more conscious with experience on how important the human rights are. So I guess what I want to ask is, well, you mentioned becoming a better person, a better human being, and sometimes, and you, Erica, mentioned that, well, in some situations like the skinheads, well, as I understood, you kind of feel helpless, and because you have to stand your point, but then again, there are 12 scary, strong-looking men who are quite intimidating. What happens when the situation doesn't work out because they don't have the empathy or the intention of becoming a better human person, and you are the one trying to understand them? What happens then?
I would be very short. Do not write down any person. Like, everyone can change. Like, just we don't know at which moment. And the biggest mistake we can do is say, like, this guy is unchangeable. And again, I will tell a very, very short story. I used to play football in Panevėžys in a football school, and we had some guys who were like local thugs in my team. And they were like, you know, if I steal the ball from them, they say, now you're gonna be killed after the training session, you know, because you don't know how to play with us. Okay, I go home with my coach, because we were neighbors and we were quite good friends, and I tell to the coach, kick them out. You know, they're doing bullshit in the team, they destroy the spirit, they are very bad. We will be better without them. And that's what he said, remained for me for all the rest of my life. He said, okay, you go home now? Yes, I say, I go home. So, you will have tea there, hot shower, you know, you will go to school, your parents take care of you, you are equipped, and look at them. Okay, they behave not good in training sessions, but they go home, the parents are not waiting because they are somewhere, probably in Spain or somewhere. They are in a gang, and they are also feel pressured. In the school, they are not welcome because they are trouble for the teachers and so on. So it's sometimes like better that they don't go there at all. It's better to write, you know, not present than to deal with them. And social care also, like say, okay, it's, you know, it's trouble, so they can do what they want. And said, maybe I'm the only hope that they can catch on. And some of them really did. I know really now, because I saw some of them, and I said, okay, probably if he would have said at that moment, you know, yeah, you are right, kick them out, they would be lost, maybe, I don't know. But then he saved them, and he had all the reasons to say that probably it's impossible to change. It's possible for everyone. Sometimes it takes much, much longer time for the others. For me, it took also some time, you know, to develop some skills that I'm still developing and self-reflecting, but every person can change. And
Guys?
Okay, so hello. I want to say my short story. For example, talking about the present and what can we do to face human rights and to talk about it. For example, I was in a youth exchange in Malta, founded by the Erasmus Plus programs, and the topic, of course, was human trafficking. I think it's really important to spread the news that, for example, human trafficking is really happening, and not all people do know about that. So what we did is that we made theater performances, and we even made 3 concerts, 2 to the local people and 1 to the president of Malta about human trafficking to spread the news about it. But you know what is the catch? For example, before we sang the song about human trafficking to the president of Malta, I asked the organizers, will the concert, will we have microphones or something for the guitars? And he said no, everything is going to be just acoustic and okay. And you know, when we came to the presidency, he only gave the microphone to his son, so that only he would sing to the president. So it's really sad that I'm with the other participants in the youth exchange, where the main topic is to understand human trafficking, and when even the organizers don't understand what it is, what human rights is about, and you just want to be honored. So that's my story.
Thank you for sharing this.
Can I ask you one question? How did you feel afterwards? Did you feel like you didn't want to bother anymore, or did it make you more determined?
Actually, it was the worst youth exchange experience that I had, because I've been to a lot of projects, and mostly the projects are just extremely perfect, and you learn about it, you learn about a lot in them. But in this project with other participants, we're so surprised, because all participants wanted to make a change. And okay, we did by making the theater performances. But talking about the organizers, it was, I don't know, we felt extremely not happy.
That happens.
That really happens.
Oh, and I can also add one thing also. In the first day of the project, we talked about with the participants what can we do in our life, and we said that we should look from where we do buy clothes. Yes, for example, the Primark. Once there was, when a woman bought a T-shirt from a Primark store, she found a hand-sewed label, a cry for help. Yes, so we should think about that, about how people work in such a poor conditions when buying those clothes from cheap reseller stores. And also, organizers heard that we talked about it. And in the end of the project, they gave us T-shirts. In the front, it said Freedom Fighter, and in the back, Primark, made in Bangladesh. Yeah.
This world is strange.
Yeah.
Yes, so I don't know. So maybe my question would be, what can we do? And where can we ask for help, I guess? Who can look for those organizations?
You're saying it right now. You're totally right. Be conscious of what you buy.
Yes, but for
where you buy
example,
it.
there should be some institutions who take care of that organizations for what they are doing. Where can we make a complaint or something? Don't you
Well,
know that?
Yeah, well, there are, but the problem is that, governments in said countries are often corrupt, and they are supposed to, these companies, that's why companies like Primark or Mango, I think, are involved in that too. They are supposed to make sure that wherever their clothes are made, that they are adhering to the various human rights, child labor laws and all of that. But very often they get around it. And so what you can do is not buy from them, boycott them. And okay, so then you say, but designer clothes or, locally made stuff is really expensive, so that's why I buy the cheap stuff. So yeah, but you can then go to Humana or something, and you can actually find really cool things there for even less. So it's like making those choices.
There are many ways.
There's always a way.
So I just want to add one thing. This is my friend, and she has written an amazing song. What can we do in the present about human trafficking? So can I ask for another microphone?
Of
to
course.
answer for her? Oh yes, please. Can you
Oh, thank you. So for me, it is easier to sing about human rights than to talk, so I will sing my song that was written for this contest. Okay, I don't know. Okay, like this. Okay. All humans are born free, but sometimes it is hard to see that everyone can be whatever they want and don't be called on. All are equal before the law, and whenever you want, you can give me a call. 'Cause it is your choice to express your opinion, but don't act aggressive for a million. So don't be afraid to speak. Imagine your success when you fall asleep. So don't be afraid to choose. With duty HR, you have nothing to lose. So don't be afraid to speak. Imagine your success when you fall asleep. So don't be afraid to choose. With duty HR, you have nothing to lose. Everyone has a right to education, participate in culture and free immigration. Everyone has a right to social security, and trust me with this, there's no obscurity. Men and women had the right to form a family, no matter the race, religion, or nationality. No one should be held in servitude or slavery, so release your magic and show me your bravery. So don't be afraid to speak. Imagine your success when you fall asleep. So don't be afraid to choose. With duty HR, you have nothing to lose. So don't be afraid to speak. Imagine your success when you fall asleep. So don't be afraid to choose. With duty HR, you have nothing to lose. Thank you.
You should write more songs. Wow, I'm surprised. I think you have other songs? Guys, no? Would you like to sing, to dance about human rights? To draw a picture? All the ways are good to express yourself and your opinion.
Or maybe you have some inspiring stories that you
Yeah.
succeeded in, for example, defending human rights and building a coalition of friends to, do some positive change.
Ir jūs tai
Share
galite
it,
padaryti
inspire
lietuviškai, jeigu
others.
norit. Žinokit,
Yeah.
tikrai nesijaudinkit, mums svarbiausia yra susišnekėti, o ne tai, kokią kalbą mes šnekam. Turit klausimų? Do you have some questions? Do you have some stories to share?
Of course you do.
Maybe teachers? Oh,
I have a question regarding the topic you spoke about before, about stores, for example, in Bangladesh, or well, in countries where the working conditions are bad, and you propose to boycott those things made there, but I think that it's not the best solution, because if we will boycott those things, then those people may lose their jobs completely, or the economy of that country suffers even more. So what do you think about that?
Well, the situation is usually like that people who are working in those situations are working in, dire situations. Usually they don't sometimes get paid. They have to work days and days non-stop. They're not even allowed to go out to the toilet. They have to pee in cups next to their sewing machines. So you can say, oh, but they're getting 5 pence or whatever, that maybe that's for them is good, but No, if you put enough pressure on those corporations, they need you to buy their clothes. And if everyone would stop buying their stuff, they would have to make those changes. Otherwise, they go out of business. And you can check online. There's many places where you can find a list of corporations, of clothes. It's not only clothes. There's other products as well. I would say it's worth it, really. But that's my personal opinion.
Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I agree. It's like probably something similar you could hear about like 1861 or something, like about the debate about slavery sometimes. Yeah, but you know, we feed them, they still get a roof over their heads and so on, so please maybe not change. And I think here it's the idea that money smells. You know, there is this from Roman Empire, this old saying that money doesn't smell, that you know, you can earn with any means possible. Here it's no, we have standards, and that's very good. And I think what it's important that the society shows its strength. We not like looking that, oh, someone has to do something. Probably they have to do something, but we can't wait. Like until someone makes a better working conditions, until some regulations are introduced. We have to make change, and like for example, even in Lithuania, we can debate about, you know, working days, like if the supermarkets should be open or not on Christmas or Easter. We can look at the parliament and say they have to decide, you know, but we can look at ourselves if we don't want. So let's not go on Easter Sunday, on Christmas to the supermarket. Let's buy before. Maybe if they will be half empty, they really will feel the pressure, or they will feel the message which is coming from the society. You know, once we actually did action on Easter Sunday, we bought many flowers in Panevėžys, and we were going and giving them to the people that had to work on this Easter Sunday, like ladies or men in supermarkets, which is, I think, I more believe in the positive actions by the people than the like some strict regulations or you know, by the government or something. Like in Israel, once I asked like why it's written, like we have many advertisements written 24/7, and there are many 24/6. And I asked like why 24/6, and they said because on Shabbat it's closed, you know, on Saturday when they have the holiday. And my question was, so the government decided like this? They said no, and said, so how did it happen? And they said like, because they know that if you know, the store will be open on Saturday, they will lose the clients, because the religious people will not go there anymore, because they will say that you break the rule of Shabbat and we will punish you. Punish by not buying at you, which is, yeah, if we will be more in solidarity with each other, we can do things. And that's, I think, it's inspiring.
Thank you, guys. Do you have any more questions? Yeah?
Okay, so I have a question. Oh, that's so loud. Okay, so I have some people, and I think every one of us have some people in our close environment that has homophobic, sexist, racist, and so on opinions, if we can even call it that. So I just wanted to ask how to, I don't know, change those opinions, how to convince them, because in the beginning of this discussion, we talked about that we should just keep going, that we just keep trying to convince them and so on. And I just wanted to ask what to do then. For example, you give them logical explanations and so on, and against that, they give you, like, let's say, 2 times more illogical explanations, but they believe it. So you just can't change their mind, and we keep doing the same stuff and so on, and I just don't know what to do, how to make a difference, how to, I don't know.
I think it's really hard. These situations I experience a lot of times, but I think it's the main thing is not to try to convince them, but to change your tasks to other ways. I mean, just to, for example, for me, it was really hard when I was talking about a lot of things, and I realized that people, they do not get what I really want to say. They're blocking the information. They have their own opinion, and that opinion is not, it's not, or clever, or even wise, or in other words you can describe. But I think it's really important to realize that if people don't want to hear, they will not. They will never take the information if they don't want. So what actually I think it's the best thing is to speak through the experience, to share your own experience, and to catalyze, I don't know the word in English, catalyze, to catalyze empathy inside of them. And if another person says really sincere things, just directly to you, you actually usually lose your guns to fight against. If you see a really heartbreaking story, how can you be rude with that person? Actually, how human being is made of, I think it's the main thing that empathy really works, and logic sometimes not, and usually logic
doesn't.
It doesn't. So actually, I have one story to share on the different situation. I was that person who believed that Christians are bad people. I really a lot of times experienced that. I was a member of a Christian choir. I was singing in the Christian choir, and I decided to stop that because I felt, as a person who don't believe in God, but I was singing about good things. My colleagues were singing as well. They were Christians, and I didn't felt that it should matter that I'm not, because I believe in love. I believe in a lot of values, and one day I just stopped to sing in Christian choir, and I decided that I will never talk sincere with any Christian at all. Through all my life, I don't want to talk with them. I don't want to work with them. I don't want because I experienced so many bad things, and actually that was my bad experience. And I heard a lot of arguments against LGBT people, against human rights in general, using Christian, I don't know, supported by some kind of theoretical things. And one day, I met a guy who's a priest, and he became a friend of mine. And it was quite strange because I just felt that this guy is really cool guy, and this guy he's not forcing me to be a Christian. He's not forcing me to believe what he believes in. He just simply talked about his own experience, and I felt that actually my doors opened to that person, and I was actually wrong. I was that person who fought or put a label on other people just because I had a bad experience, or just because other people hated me or had arguments against me, and our friendship grown, and he actually told me later that he's gay and he really needs to talk about something, to talk with somebody about that, because he feels really bad in Lithuanian church. And we talked a lot of things about LGBT themes and so on and so on. And we had a really wonderful experience together. I have a car, and sometimes if I feel bad or lonely, I took a car and I go through Vilnius, through the streets, and I called him, would you like to get some coffee from Circle K and go together with me around around Vilnius? And we stopped at what point we were looking at Vilnius panorama and sitting on my car, drinking a coffee, and we started a discussion about what Christianity is for him, and what love is for me, and what consciousness is for me, and what empathy is for me. And actually, after the discussion, we decided that we were talking about the same things. And at that time, I realized probably I believe in God, but in my own way. I believe in love, and I believe in values, which are the same with people, Christian people. So, and you can talk about the same things from different perspectives, and sometimes you can stuck in the situation that you're talking about the same. You believe the same, but you're fighting against each other. And it's in real life, it's really difficult to realize and to look through these things and to look behind these walls and these labels and to accept each other. It's a hard thing, but it's possible. It's if we let ourselves to, if we let empathy and love to work for us, not to be clever enough to be responsible for all the world's consciousness about human rights. I think it's more important to let love and empathy to let inside of you, and the main thing, I think the main thing, the most important, is to learn how to accept yourself. Since you accept yourself, and since you're comfortable with all the things are living inside of you, then you start to accept other, because it doesn't matter. So, and I think I draw actually another picture, full of pictures. Yeah, I draw a town, which I can call consciousness, and the way, which I can call experience. And I didn't have enough time to draw the tools how we can use, but I would draw a car, and which I call empathy, and a plane, which I call love. And I think these things can lead through the experience to the consciousness, and it's a journey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just to add a few things, maybe from what Dominika said, it's interesting debate about the collective stereotypes that, sometimes we attach labels not to a person, like based on experience, but on the whole groups. And I had one meeting which was very inspiring for me. I had to moderate a presentation of a book called A Boy with a Violin. It's a memoir written by Israeli Litvak writer Yohanan Fein, and he just speaks about his story, how he was saved during Holocaust by one Lithuanian, just because he used to play violin very good. And this guy who was saving decided that I can't save all the people, so I will save the ones who are most talented, that from them the community will start to grow again after the war. And that's how he got to know this boy. But during this presentation, I asked him, so how do you feel? Did you ever believe that your book will be published in Lithuania, in the country which arises like multiple feelings for you maybe? And he said, before my trip to Lithuania, I had some friends who were telling me, yeah, you go to the country where Lithuanians killed your parents because his family all perished, were killed during the war. And he answered to those friends in few sentences, said, there is one word that I really hate. It's everyone. Not everyone killed, not everyone was passive, not everyone was betrayer, not everyone was fighting. We have to speak about people. And that's how we have the ability to look through the groups and actually we evaluate the human actions, not the group that a person belongs. And it's, why I tell this, if I tell, I'm telling it's a theory. But to hear it from the man who experienced that much, who actually at the last day of a war when the Nazis were retreating, ran to the Kaunas ghetto from the place where he was hidden and saw the ghetto burning and saw that his family burned inside the cellar because they tried to hide there in the hope that they will be not found by the Nazis, and they suffocated in the cellar. So this trauma. And you still, instead of continuing some kind of hate, turning it into revenge on the people who did, they do it vice versa. They go and say, okay, we have to change. Not everyone is bad. Not everyone is a criminal. We have to rebuild. And on what to rebuild? That's human rights. That's the basis on which we can meet. And it's very important what Dominika said. We can meet on this basis it doesn't matter. Are you a believer or a secular person, like your political views, socialist or conservative? We can all meet. Because if you want to continue as a society, I mean society that has bonds with each other. So we should have some kind of basis on which we meet. Because it's very easy to destroy the bridges, but then it's very hard to rebuild them. In Mostar, in Bosnia, a friend of mine, Krzysztof, he was there, and he said, there was a very old bridge of stone, made of stones, and it was bombed during the war in the 90s. Afterwards, it was rebuilt. But what the people said, sadly, we have the bridge rebuilt, which you see. But we still are rebuilding those bridges which once connected us into a society. It's very hard work. But that's only work which is worth investing our energy, because it's about us being together.
I just wanted to add what you were saying about how hard it is to convince people. And I know it's hard, and I totally understand what you're saying. But I think one of the key things is that if people feel like you're ready to fight them and you're gonna convince, then they're gonna be on the attack too. So both sides need to feel like they're being heard. Even if you really disagree with them, try just to have a bit more patience, and you have a chance to find more common ground than you imagine.
Yes, I understand that, but it's just that usually they are the ones that start the fight, and it's just that, should I just do nothing in this situation?
No, you shouldn't do. You should definitely engage them, but it's how, because they're expecting a reaction from you. That's why they're doing that. So don't rise to the bait. Don't rise to the. You understand what I mean by that? Like they're dangling something for you to bite. So don't bite. Be like, okay, let's talk about this. And maybe be playful about it. I have friends, dear friends of mine, who we agree to disagree sometimes because we don't always agree on things. And that's okay.
Yeah, I understand that.
Some questions, some experience? We have to.
Okay, I have a question regarding what policies could potentially be implemented to sort of stop discrimination. So, do you personally believe that hate speech laws should be implemented? And if so, what criteria would you propose to help distinguish one's use of their freedom of speech, their right to freedom of speech, from hate speech?
Thank you for the question. Guys?
Actually, I'm personally a supporter of free speech, which is without borders. It's risky tactics, but I'm more supporter of education. Like not that restrictions, because what can happen with the restrictions, you give one tool to the people to say, look, that's human rights, and my human right to freedom of speech is violated, and it can be used in various ways. The second thing, without, like with implementing restriction, without implementing good educational practices, you just throw everything under the carpet. Then you know you can pretend, so we are nice, we are beautiful, and even now, like we have many tools to, how to say, make our public space more friendly, more clear. For example, comments on online. You don't need any hate speech law or something. The media should be more responsible to start initiatives to, delete all the comments which insult people. You don't need any law. It's about responsibility, and also I think of the readers pushing a bit the leaders of the media company. Like I had a debate. I was an editor of one internet daily, Bernardinai, and we had a debate what to do with the comments, because we had comments which you were able to comment only with the registration. But still, the people got to know that the system can be used. You can register like Petras at Petras.lt, like with some, nickname and so on, and still comment. And we decided that until we will not implement a normal technical procedure that only the people with the real names can comment, we will withdraw the commenting at all, because we had several issues when some people were insulted, the privacy was violated, when some gossips were spread and so on. So that, and it was for me the question, what to defend? This engagement and maybe some clicks, or the rights of those people who were violated at that time. That was not a good solution, because technically we didn't have money to implement, but still, you choose sometimes between two bad things sometimes, and you have to choose the lesser evil.
I wrote my question down just in case, thoughts flying all over. So I wanted to ask, do you have any personal tips for teenagers and just for people overall? How to come out as a member of LGBT community when you have really strict and homophobic parents?
Ta-da! Go for it.
Any tips? Actually, it's my personal opinion belongs to that sector. Then you cannot give any tips to a particular situation, because other person's experience is his authentic, and it's really hard to decide how to do that, when to do that, or even it's worthy to do that. To speak through your heart, yes. But sometimes I think that you need to really find your own way, and to be wise enough how can reflect in your situation. Sometimes it can be very dangerous, and sometimes not. Sometimes the theory is bigger than the reality. But I know a lot of different stories. My story was quite nice and good and soft, but I was participated in one. I had a boyfriend, and his a long time ago, and his mother was really tolerant for LGBT people, but when she realized that her own son is LGBT people, it became a disaster, totally disaster, hatred, threat, the worst, it was the worst case what he expected of that. So you may never say that it's the right way to do that. So I think, I don't know, I cannot give tips. I just can give tips that you at first you need to grow up and to be secure in the situation, and your relationship with yourself is the main thing. You have to be strong enough to do that. So when people say that you have to make a coming out, or you must to do that, I don't think that you must to do anything in your life. You mustn't. You just need to realize what is your entire situation and your particular situation, and then it's your feelings and consciousness will help you to make a decision, because it's a very hard decision, and it should come naturally. So. Or actually, you should. I think the main thing is to talk about that with other people, or even to get the opinion of your aunt or whatever, which is from the surroundings.
Someone you're close to, who you trust.
Yeah, just to check your the sense of reality, and to talk about with your close environment about that. Yeah. More questions? Yeah?
Yes, comment. I wanted to... It works? Okay, it works. I wanted to add a comment where I think it came from, because I believe it's part of our history, because we are part of Soviet Union and we had this narrow mindset. We are not traveling around. So yeah, for my grandmother, if I would say that I have a friend and she has a black skin, she would be like, no. But for me, it's like a normal person, you know. So I believe that young people, when they're traveling around, they are meeting new, different people than you. They're becoming more open-minded, and I believe that that is an answer how we can change it. Because youth is changing, but for older people it's quite harder because they lived in different times. So I believe that is one of the answers how we can change our mindset.
She said it was a comment.
It was a comment. Do you have something to add, to ask, to share your story, because our discussion comes to an end?
I have a thought about a different direction. I think that for me personally, human rights began when I tried to discover animal rights. And for me, animals were the base of human rights, and that's why I discovered it, because I really care about that. And I think that if people are not respectful to animals and they are not aware that animals are sentient beings, I think that a human who can harm a dog or other sentient being can equally harm another human being, and I think that it should not be tolerated as it is now. Then owners beat their dogs, cats, or other animals. And I think that a lot of people might disagree with that. But personally, everyone should do something to protect animals, because they are the most vulnerable beings in the planet, and it begins with that.
Thanks for what you have said. I think it's like speaking about the animals there. Let me finish. Because I think that someone wakes up and wants to, throw a stone at the dog, that he is... What I'm coming to is that the people have sometimes psychological problems, that they need help, and this kind of behavior towards your neighbor, towards your dog or something, is just some expression of what's happening inside your soul, which is in a way a cry for help, which is not shown in a right way. But we have to, in our society, in our country, to develop more social services and more quality services, like to help people to overcome the issues that they live with. I remember a long time ago, and sometimes still now, it was, if you go to a psychiatrist or psychologist, that's, you are mad, you are crazy. Now it's changing, yeah? Because it's normal. Like, if you have problems, you go and you ask. And that's, if you are stigmatized with this, that you can't go because it's then you are mad, you are stupid or something like this, then sometimes it comes to this, like that you express your inner hell in ways that are really inappropriate. But I think when we notice this kind of behavior, we should also not be like the ones who come from above, and start lecturing. Of course, we have to say this way of behavior is inappropriate, but the second question maybe should be like, do you need any help, or can I help you in some way? What's the problem? Why do you behave like this? Yeah, and I think in many times this second question is missing. That we come, we lecture, we moralize, we tell what to do, how to live, and then we leave. Then I feel, really smart and good, and I condemned him, said this, I'm an educator, human rights activist, and so on. But the real question is, do I really care about this person? Do I want to help him? Do I want to somehow make a contact with him that, that would change the situation? Not just to feel that I'm morally superior or something like this, I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have
Thank you.
Were there any questions here?
Would you
No?
like
I
something
thought
to
so.
ask?
Oh.
What region in the European Union is the best place, or in the Lithuania, this question, for human rights? Kas pirmą vietą užima iš ES šalių žmogaus teisių srityje? Ir ES, ir Lietuvoje. Regionas arba vyriausybė.
Who are the top countries? I don't.
Who are top countries?
I don't have.
You know,
do you know?
Iceland is first. Islandija, sako, kad Islandija yra pirmoji šalis, pirmaujanti šalis šioje sferoje. Bet mes, ko gero, bent jau mes trys, tai nesame ekspertai, tai negalim pakomentuoti šito klausimo.
Aš apskritai labai trumpai, gal tik tai labai skeptiškai žiūriu į daugelį tų reitingų visokių, jie atskleidžia tam tikrus dalykus, bet tada mes juos labai įdomiai interpretuojam. Tada mes padarėm dabar, pavyzdžiui, savivaldybių gerovės indeksą neseniai, kad paskaičiuotume, kur galbūt pasistiepti reikia. Tai vietoj to, kad tai būtų tas, kur pasistiepti reikia, tai kas dabar pirmas, tai kas dabar paskutinis. Tarsi, iškovojau vietą ir galiu sustoti. Tai iš tikrųjų jo, ir tada, man atrodo, vėl kalbant, kokius aspektus mes lyginam, tai čia galėsiu pasidomėti ir tada kažką plačiau gal ponas jums pakomentuoti, nes dabar tikrai nenoriu komentuoti, nes nelabai žinau.
So, the last sentence. Erica, would you like to add something to this wonderful and interesting discussion?
I would just like to say thank you for having me here, and I had a really inspiring time, actually. It's been wonderful to see all of you young people, and I hope that you guys were inspired today in some way. And I hope that we continue to go forward to improving ourselves and each other and society in general. Yeah.
Thank you. Applause, Erica. I just remember what I would like to suggest that person who wants to come out to his parents, and his parents are very conservative people. Actually, the only suggestion it would be to prepare some material, from some good real material, because the internet is full of shit. I'm so sorry to say that, but usually people go to internet, our moms and dads, and start to read nonsenses. So there are a few books. In Lithuanian language there are not so many, but there are still few. As I know, one of them you can buy here. Romas Zabarauskas has his own book, 99 Stories, somewhere here. I cannot remember where. Oh, he's here. So it's sad to say, but there are not so many literature, or you can prepare some. It's a commercial here. Or yeah, when I came out to my parents, I just brought 5 movies, 5 books to my mother. She cried a week, and then she started to read. So thank you for having me here, and we have Donatas. Would you like to add something to the discussion?
To add, I would like also to say thank you. It was important improvisation, I would say, for me, because I said in self-reflection some things that probably I didn't intend to say, but it was good opportunity to look at myself in the mirror. And actually the change of the society begins from the question, how can I change? And then only, because there is one joke, that says like, there was a man one day who woke up in the morning and said, I will change the world. He went on to work, the world didn't change. Then he said, I will change my country at least. And he went on to work, the country didn't change. Then he said, now I will change my family because I should change my wife. And the wife didn't change. Then the next morning he woke up and said, maybe finally I have to change myself. So it's if we, I think, will become more self-reflective, more like enthusiastic, more investing and taking responsibility, everything will become better. And there are many opportunities for us to act in our local areas. So I wish you all the best. Thanks for coming, thanks for sharing, and keep up. Never lose hope.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree with Donatas. If you are a human rights activist, remember that you're not only a right person on this, but you're also human. Yeah, you're also human, and you make a mistake sometimes. Okay, so love, empathy for you and your families and yourself, and see you next time.